Hi, welcome to Pie I Love. I'm Emily.
I'm Christy.
And this is the first of hopefully many tutorials that we'll be doing for you with just a little sneak peek about how we make our pie. And today specifically it is our pie crust, because that seems to be the one question everybody has, which is how do I make homemade pie crust? And we both feel very strongly that it's not difficult. With a few key things, anybody can make it.
Don't be intimidated.
Please don't. And we want to show you that even we each do things a little bit differently with our own recipes, but we feel that anyone can accomplish this. So here we go.
I'm so excited to see yours in action.
So this is mine. So today we're taking, we're gonna do my pie crust recipe. When I first started making pie, I did think that I needed to find a recipe in a book that told me exactly what to do. And then what you find is that every cookbook has a different variation, and there's different followings for the vodka people and the all butter people and the put an egg in it people. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of people I am. So it took me about 14 different recipes to kind of develop my own based on what was working the right way for me. And Christy and I are pie sisters divided because she's an all butter pie maker, and I want to be her, but I've not broken up with my tiny 4 tablespoons of shortening that I just have to put in there.
But I never ever would have tried 14 different recipes before perfecting mine either. So that's another variance. It was like, okay, this is good enough. I'm done trying.
Well, but what I found out was I probably could have stopped at recipe number 2 and been fine. But I haven't been able to break up with it. So I think the happy medium I've set for myself is that I feel guilty using shortening. It gives me results that I want. So I buy the super expensive fancy shortening at Whole Foods. That is the Spectrum palm oil brand. This is in no way an endorsement for it. It's just, if it makes you feel better, you can buy that. And then you can be like me.
It's not Crisco. Oh, am I not supposed to say bad things about Crisco?
I don't know.
Oh,
no,
well.
It's our channel. We're
okay.
fine.
All right.
I have nothing against Crisco. Sometimes I use it when I can't pay the $8 for the Spectrum. So just don't worry about it. I'm just saying don't worry about it. No one needs to know. So
that's right.
All right.
I think that's right.
Today, I also use a food processor. Christy does as well. I've tried the pastry blender and the fork and pie method. One, it's just too much physical labor. I don't want to do it.
It takes too long.
It takes way too long. And there's too much guessing. The food processor takes the guessing out. I want the path of least resistance. You give me appliances that will do it for me. That's what I want. So the food processor. Today I'm using Christy's food processor, so I'm a little bit nervous because I sort of understand my own and I don't know about Christy's. This will be fun, but I'm gonna take you through typically how I do it. So I'm gonna make is this enough to do 2 crusts?
It is, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So
it's 11 cup. It has an 11 cup.
This is the one thing I learned the hard way. I didn't know that there was different cups in food processors. And one day I went to make a double and it didn't fit because I had too small of a food processor. So I will make enough here for 2 9-inch crusts, and that would be for 2 pies, or if you want to make 1 pie with a double crust. You always have to remember that you need to make 2 crusts out of your recipe. So my recipe for a double crust is going to take 3 cups of flour. I have no strong feelings about what kind of flour. I buy gold medal for no reason whatsoever, except I think it's the first thing I see in the grocery store. I think King Arthur's amazing. I don't know why I do. I think it's because Instagram tells me it should be.
I don't actually know why I use King Arthur, but that's what I use.
Yeah, do you notice anything different when you use it?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't used anything else in many, many years, so I don't even know why I started using it. Yeah.
I mean, I believe them that they're good. I have their cookbook. But I don't know. I just use gold medal, so there you have it. Maybe it's the big orange seal that catches my eye first thing. So I'm going on 3 cups right now. Remember, this is double crust, so if I was making 1, it's 1.5 cups of flour, all-purpose. Don't ever, ever, ever swap flour. I mean, you can if you want to, but you're not going to get the same results. You need all-purpose flour.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what you meant by swap flour.
I mean, no whole wheat.
Got it.
No, white whole wheat.
Right.
No cake flour. Maybe that will work. I don't think it will, though. So I do
fine.
3 cups of flour. I am a fan of adding a little bit of sugar to mine. Not a ton, but for a double crust, I'll add 2 tablespoons of sugar.
And you just like a little bit of sweetness in
Tiny
your
bit.
Finished crust?
You know, there's something about the sugar that I think actually affects the texture of the crust.
Okay.
And you see, I decided I only want to do a full 2 tablespoons today. I'm going to put some back. So
you just
I
get
don't
to
know why.
decide.
I just decide. I totally decide what I feel like doing about 2 tablespoons for a recipe for double crust. I think it adds something to the texture. I do
That
think
makes
I read
sense to
something
me.
once that like it does affect how you work the dough.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do about a teaspoon of salt. I never really measure. I do kind of the same thing. So I want about 1 to 1.5. I don't know. This is the beauty of why we started Pie I Love, is that we felt like there's people out there that want to make pie and get overwhelmed by all the rules. And I don't think there needs to be a lot of rules. I think you can just dump some salt in as long as it's not too much.
We've sort of talked about doing a video for each of our versions of pie dough, but I feel like I want to show you lots and lots of them because it's the same recipe technically, but it turns out differently every time.
Every time. I like to pulse the dry ingredients first before I move on to putting the fat in.
That's smart. I don't take the time.
So quickly.
That's the right thing to do.
I just tossed it around really quick. There is absolutely no science to this whatsoever. I shouldn't be speaking over the food processor, but it was.
So this has to come out first.
This is Christy's food processor.
You can tell she's using my food
I
processor.
know, I don't know how to work it.
Yeah, and then it'll, yeah.
Okay, good. So if there's one thing I need to do before I make pie, it's I have to pre-freeze my butter and shortening already cubed up. For some reason, I find it this insurmountable task to want to make pie and then realize my butter's not frozen because it just adds like another hour to my trajectory of like when I'm gonna get this pie done. So I'm a big fan of having these pre-made butter packets in my freezer all the time. So let me show you what that looks like.
I have recently tried using Emily's frozen butter for my all butter crust, and my dough was just sort of kind of falling apart. I couldn't get it to come together, so I'm excited to watch you do this.
So this is what I use. I chop it all up and I keep it in the freezer at any given time, so that's ready to go. And it just takes one small step out. So I just literally dump it right in all over the flour.
Okay, so I love this idea of the frozen fat because it'll distribute beautifully through the flour, and it'll sort of cut up instead of kind of blend completely into it. It didn't work for me for some reason. So I'm gonna watch this and then I'm gonna try it
No, I don't
again.
think there's any magic to it. It's just, I don't know. Now I've become superstitious about a few things, and like this is one of them, and I have no logic or data to prove to you that it makes it any different. So with the food processor, I've really become a be one with your pie kind of girl. Rather than like how many pulses and whatever, like honest to God, like just like listen to it and use your judgment, because I think with pie, people have gotten so scientific about pie that you sort of lose a little bit of your intuition and going with your gut. And that's exactly how I do this part of making pie. And this is nerve-wracking for people because once you cut in this butter, there is no going back. I don't want to scare you, it's fine. But that's why I say like just relax and use your intuition. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pulse this a few times. I listen for it to change from really clunky and chunky to starting to smooth out and
you
feel
won't
like
have that
things are
sound
more
if it's not
consistent.
frozen.
Oh, that's true. You didn't have that sound.
No.
We've done Christy's video as well, and I did not hear that with yours. This might throw me off, but let's see. Like right now, it sounds very chunky to me still, and I'm gonna keep going. It's even kind of vibrating, like it wants to sort of take off from the table. So you know you're not there yet. Okay, so now I'm feeling like I need to check it.
There you go.
I really like to check the crust. I always have a butter knife on hand from when I used my flour typically, where I kind of just fluff it around and I check out how the consistency is going. Depends on what kind of food processor you have. Sometimes it can get caught under the blade and you'll get a big ball of dough or butter under there that you didn't realize. So I, just as a preventative measure, just look through. So what I can see right now is my butter is way too chunky still.
Big chunks of butter.
So I want to continue on and keep pulsing. So that way I know I'm not being overzealous. I'm being fine. What I'm not being fine about is learning this food processor.
You got it.
All right.
Oh, I just heard a sound change.
I did hear a sound change.
Was that the sound change or just a sound change?
That's what I'm saying.
Again, yes.
It's gonna take a while. Just if I had my own food processor, I would be fine.
That you've used thousands of times.
Right, I know exactly
It's hard
what's happening.
change.
Which is so funny because something as small as this can change your pie crust.
Yeah.
Because I'm not used to this blade and I'm not used to the food processor. But honestly, my pie crust might end up looking different or acting different, but it's gonna taste fine in the end. So I'm not gonna freak out about this. So at this point, I am feeling like it's cut in enough because what happens with a food processor is once you add some of your water, you're gonna continue to mix it and it's gonna continue to get cut in. So I definitely stop shy of perfect. If it's still a little chunky, that's okay because you're gonna put the water on and you're gonna do some more mixing. So this is time for me. What I use for my water in a double crust recipe is about a half cup of cold water. I usually stick it in the freezer with some ice cubes and a couple teaspoons of apple cider.
That's so much more liquid than I use.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to use it.
Oh, okay.
Right? Same thing.
So you have it ready.
So they were making fun of me earlier because this is like my, again, superstition. This is my broken measuring cup.
It's pretty cute.
But it's got the lines and it's got the spout. So it's like, I know what I'm doing every time. Just leave me be.
Okay, and so why the apple cider vinegar?
Oh, so the apple cider, I feel like kind of is in this vodka camp of adding a little vinegar helps evaporate the liquid out while it's cooking and create those air pockets that you want.
I like that.
Again, I'm not certain it actually happens, but I think it does work.
Okay.
I don't go back. And
her crust is so good. It's so good. So I'm kind of believing this.
At this point in my pie making, I honestly like fill up the cup to a half cup, dump in some apple cider vinegar, and I don't even worry about it because what you're going to see is it's never going to be exactly however many tablespoons or cups you're supposed to use. It all depends on the weather. So right now, it's July. Christine and I both live in houses without air conditioning and it's hot and it's probably not going to take any water. I'd rather you just use the water until it looks right. We're back to like our pie intuition here, you know? Yep. So I'm just going to drizzle. I like using my little cup because it's got a spout. I'm going to drizzle some water over it and hope for the best. How much I drizzle, I don't know. But look, I can look at my lines and I can make sure I didn't do that much. I barely did an eighth cup of water. So let's see how this does. And we just go a little bit at a time and we see how we end up. I end up breaking Chrissy's food processor. That's what I do. See, that's funny. So I'm getting nervous because I can tell that the blade is sort of stuck in the middle and the stuff around it isn't going. It's not falling down.
So maybe this is why I had trouble with the frozen butter, just because my food processor is different. I don't know.
Right. But it's not a big deal because I'm going to use my knife.
Exactly. One of the things I love about Emily's crust is that it's beautiful. You, when she rolls it out, and then even in the finished product, you can see the fat distributed through her crust. There's like this variation in color and
speckled.
So I'm really interested in, I'm gonna stick with my all butter thing, but I'm really interested in trying out this apple cider vinegar and just seeing what that does.
If it changes it a little bit. So I'm gonna pulse this a little bit more. Okay, so for now, I think I'm done. It's a humid day. Normally, I would think that I would need more water, but I don't. And it's amazing how the temperature and the conditions around you affect your dough.
It is over 80% humidity today, so it is very, very thick air.
And it's funny because right now this dough looks a lot more doughy than I'm used to. Normally when I take my dough out, it looks a little bit more sandy, but if you pinch it together, it holds.
Yes.
But today it's a lot wetter and it really does look more like dough.
Mine was too. So there's something about this
Which
way.
isn't okay.
Here.
She's gonna do it.
There you go.
You can make pie anywhere. Anywhere, I tell you. It doesn't matter. Normally I tell people that don't picture cookie dough when you're making pie dough, because that's a dough that everybody's used to. You do not want to pulse. You do not want to keep it going until it starts to look homogeneous and like cookie dough. You do want to stop while it's still a little crumbly and not holding itself together.
And you'll see flour. You'll still see dry flour sort of in there,
which is perfectly fine. Because what I like to do is take a large metal bowl and I dump out the dough into it so that I can really look at the consistency. Okay, so At this point, I've dumped everything in the food processor into this bowl. This is an important step for me because you really can see some inconsistencies right now still in the dough. This is where you have to use your hands. Don't freak out. So many books say, oh my gosh, don't touch it. Don't ever touch it. Put like iced gloves on. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. But I honestly get my hands in and I sort of toss it around a little because there is still some water to distribute. I had some dry dough still along the edges of the food processor, and this helps me get it all mixed together. I don't mind one bit. And then what I usually do is I go ahead and just start splitting it up into the bowl into 2 almost equal portions.
Oh, cool.
And it takes a second to push it all together, but this is where you'll really know how it feels. Is it crumbly? Is it falling apart? This feels fine to me. And you can even see it's crumbling, but that's normal. It will start to come together. You do have to build up a tiny bit of gluten in this to start to hold it together. So here's one. And then at the end, I just make sure they seem like the same size. That is a lot of guesswork when you're doing a double crust. Sometimes I get one crust that's like amazing, would have been so great for a deep dish pie, but the other one's like super shallow because I totally cut the dough wrong. This one, I think this guy needs more. So see, I put him back in.
And if I'm doing a double crust pie, then I'll use the bigger one. And when I pull them out and one feels heavier, I'll use the bigger one on the bottom because the top one doesn't need to be rolled out quite as far to cover it.
And then I honestly do like, do you remember like when you used to get gum on yourself as a kid and then you'd use the gum to like get the gum off? That's what I do like with dough to get the dough crumbs out. I don't want to waste anything. I pick it all up. Okay, so now I am left with 2 balls of dough. I have this funny thing about flattening the dough is because I feel like this is my chance to make my rolling go as easy as possible. So I really love to like smush it into like a really wide disc. But what I do, I don't like my hands on it too much because I don't want it to get, but I'll smush it and then I'll like patch the edges together because when I take it out, I want it as like a good start as possible.
And you can already see in her dough the variation with the fat that's distributed throughout there. You can see like little chunks of it and the color. I just love that about hers. And some of it is white, so that's shortening, which I'm never gonna get. But some of it is yellow. Well, no, I mean, so I want to figure out what I can do to have a little bit more of a look like that.
With the butter.
That's my goal.
Maybe it's frozen butter.
Maybe it's frozen butter. Yeah.
Maybe it's
and
frozen butter.
I only tried it a couple of times.
And not super hot days. So as you can see, I really work on getting mine into a nice disc, only because that feels like I'm halfway there when I roll it. There's one. And I'll do this guy. And a lot of times, they crack apart a little when you do this and you start to lose all hope and think that you did it all wrong, and that is not the case. Not the case at all. Look at this. See, I would hate, this would like make me so sad if I didn't understand that all you have to do is push it back together and it's gonna roll out just fine.
Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. And no one needs to know that you're in your kitchen smushing the edges back together.
That's right.
But you'll thank me when you start to roll it. I had no idea you could touch pie this much. I think pie wants to be touched, frankly.
I agree.
I'm just saying. Sometimes.
I'm not shy about it, but if you listen to the experts talk about making perfect pastry, then you don't want to touch it with anything warm. You don't want to work it too much. You don't want to overwork it. And I think we try not to overwork, but forget about the perfectionism of a bowl out of the freezer and not touching it with your warm hands, and I'll forget it. Who has time?
Let me tell you how warm it is right now. But this is about the size of the discs that I do. So that way when I pull them out, they're really, they're in good shape to start rolling into keeping the shape. And so you saw me squish it a lot. A lot of people will get nervous about that, but it works. It's fine. So this wraps up our tutorial on making pie crust. And we hope that if you enjoyed this video, you'll follow along with us through our channel, through any of our other social media outlets, and definitely put a comment below. Agree or disagree with us, or maybe you have better tips for us to try, and we'll pick one and try it out the next time we do this. So thanks a lot for following.
Thank you.
Yours in Pie. Bye.